The rain fell like bullets on Chinatown streets, turning neon signs into bleeding colors. Kate hadn't eaten in 2 days, her hands cramping as she scrubbed floors she'd already cleaned twice. When she found the bank statements tucked in Carmen Martinez's Bible, 3 years of stolen trust funds, her parents' final gift turned into the Martinez family's shopping spree, she knew she'd made a fatal mistake. "You weren't supposed to see that," Carmen said coldly, her charitable church lady mask crumbling. Roberto opened the door to the raging storm. "Fix that smart mouth in the rain, Nina. Maybe you'll learn to keep quiet." Kate's thin denim jacket was soaked through in seconds. As her legs gave out on the slick pavement, her box braids heavy with water, she thought about her parents and how they'd saved every penny for her future. A black Mercedes pulled up, headlights cutting through the downpour. Lee Song, Chinatown's most feared and most respected name, stepped out in a burgundy suit that shouldn't have survived 5 seconds in that rain. He knelt beside Kate, and everything changed. This is the story of how a girl with nothing became the person even the Mafia boss couldn't afford to lose. Welcome, family! Before we dive into Kate's story, drop your city in the comments and hit subscribe, because this girl's about to learn she was never the burden they made her believe she was. Now, let's get into it. Day 847 of playing Cinderella, Kate thought, as she scrubbed the Martinez family's kitchen floor for the 2nd time that week, still waiting on the fairy godmother. Her stomach cramped with hunger. 18 hours since her last meal, a stale bagel she'd found in the back of the fridge. But complaining was a luxury she couldn't afford, not when Carmen Martinez was watching from the doorway with those calculating eyes that saw Kate as nothing more than an investment. "When you're done, Carmen's bedroom needs organizing," Carmen said without looking up from her phone, "and don't touch my things." Kate nodded, keeping her head down, her box braids falling forward to hide the flash of resentment in her hazel eyes. She'd perfected the art of being invisible over 3 years in this Chinatown apartment. Small, quiet, grateful. The storage room where she slept on a torn futon was testament to her place in this family's hierarchy, somewhere between forgotten furniture and an inconvenient obligation. Carmen's bedroom was a shrine to hypocrisy. Religious iconography covered the walls. Crosses, prayer cards, inspirational quotes about God's love, while designer bags cluttered the closet and jewelry sparkled on the dresser. Kate had always wondered how a family that claimed poverty could afford such luxuries on a bodega owner's salary. She found the answer in a hollowed-out Bible on the nightstand. Bank statements, dozens of them, folded into the Book of Psalms. Kate's hands shook as she unfolded the first one. Her trust fund, the $80,000 her parents had scraped together, the last proof they'd loved her, reduced to numbers on paper. Monthly withdrawals labeled foster care services, therapeutic services, educational support, medical necessities. Services she'd never received, support that never existed, medical care she'd been denied even when she'd sprained her ankle and limped for 2 weeks. The dates matched perfectly with Diego's new car, Sophia's Instagram posts featuring designer hauls, Roberto's weekend trips to Atlantic City. They'd been farming her, harvesting her parents' sacrifice to fund their comfort while she starved. "What are you doing?" Carmen's voice was ice. Kate looked up, the statements clutched in her hands. "You stole from me. All of it. You've been stealing for 3 years." Carmen's charitable mask crumbled, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. You forged my signature. You claimed expenses that never happened. You—" "Roberto?" Carmen's scream brought heavy footsteps thundering up the stairs. Roberto Martinez appeared, his face flushed with panic rather than rage. Not guilt about the theft, panic about being caught. "You weren't supposed to see those," and the admission was almost worse than denial. Kate backed toward the door, but Diego blocked her path, his athletic build suddenly menacing. Sophia appeared behind him, her phone forgotten, reality finally penetrating her Instagram-filtered world. "You know too much," Carmen hissed, advancing. "You always asked too many questions, always had to be so smart, so difficult." "I'm calling the police." Kate reached for her phone, but Roberto grabbed her wrist, twisting until she dropped it. "You're not calling anyone." His grip was bruising, his breath sour. "You are an ungrateful little... We gave you a home. We fed you. You starved me." Kate's voice cracked. "I sleep in your storage room. I eat your leftovers when you remember I exist. You took everything my parents left me and spent it on yourselves, while I..." Roberto dragged her to the front door. Kate fought, but 3 years of inadequate meals had left her weakened. Carmen followed, grabbing a thin denim jacket from the closet and throwing it at Kate's chest. "Fix your attitude," Carmen's voice returning to that practiced sweetness. "Maybe some time outside will help you remember gratitude." The door opened to chaos. Rain fell like God's judgment, turning Chinatown streets into rivers. The storm had rolled in an hour ago, the kind that made the news, that flooded subways and toppled construction scaffolding, the kind that killed. "Please," Kate whispered, genuine fear breaking through her anger. "Please, I won't tell anyone. I just..." Roberto shoved her into the downpour. "You always were too much trouble." The door slammed, the lock clicked. Through the rain-streaked window, Kate could see them already returning to their dinner, the warm glow of their lives continuing as if she'd never existed. Kate tried to run, but her legs were weak and the rain was blinding. Water soaked through her thin jacket in seconds, plastering her box braids to her skull, filling her worn sneakers. Every foster home had ended like this. Her fault. Too difficult, too different, too black, too loud, too much. She'd survived 4 placements before the Martinezes, each rejection carving away another piece of her belief that she deserved better. She collapsed near a shuttered restaurant, her body giving up before her mind could. Through the sheets of rain, she could still see the Martinez apartment's windows, golden and warm. Sophia moved past one, laughing at something on her phone, probably already posting about family dinner, the perfect life funded by Kate's dead parents. Kate thought about her mom and dad. Their faces were fading now, 3 years blurring the details she'd sworn to remember forever. They'd saved every penny for her future. They'd worked double shifts and skipped vacations and died believing their daughter would be okay because they'd left her something. And the Martinezes had turned that sacrifice into handbags and gambling chips and a car with custom rims. Is this how it ends? Kate wondered, rain filling her mouth, her vision darkening at the edges. 18 years old and drowning on dry land, too tired to even be angry anymore. Then, through the storm's violence, a sound, the purr of an engine, smooth and expensive, cutting through the chaos. Headlights swept across her, and Kate looked up to see a black Mercedes pulling to the curb, sleek and out of place in this moment of destruction. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, Asian, maybe 30, wearing a burgundy suit that had no business surviving 5 seconds in this weather. His dark hair was already plastered to his forehead, but he moved with purpose, like storms bent to his will rather than the other way around. Their eyes met, and Kate's first thought was absurd enough to make her want to laugh. His suit is going to be ruined. But then she saw his expression. Not pity. Kate had learned to recognize pity, had learned to hate it. This was different. Concern, yes, but also recognition, like he was seeing something in her that she'd forgotten existed. He crossed the flooded street without hesitation, kneeling beside her in designer shoes that would never recover. Up close, he was striking, sharp features, intelligent eyes, an aura of controlled power that made the storm seem insignificant. "You're coming with me," he said, his voice a low baritone that somehow carried over the thunder. Not a question, not a request, a statement of fact. Kate wanted to argue, wanted to ask who he was, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, but her body was shutting down, and somewhere in her oxygen-deprived brain, she understood that this stranger was offering her something she hadn't had in 3 years, a choice that didn't end with her on the street. "We'll discuss the why later," he added, already lifting her as if she weighed nothing. "Right now, you need to be anywhere but here." As he carried her toward the Mercedes, Kate caught one last glimpse of the Martinez apartment. The lights were still on, the family still moving behind the windows, completely unaware that they'd just made the worst mistake of their lives. They'd thrown her away, but unlike every other time, someone had been watching, and from the way this stranger's jaw tightened as he looked at that warm, distant window, Kate had the distinct impression that the Martinez family's comfortable world was about to face its own storm. The car door closed behind them, and Kate's consciousness finally surrendered to the darkness. Her last coherent thought was wondering if she'd wake up somewhere worse, or if maybe, impossibly, this was the universe finally deciding she deserved a break. Chen had worked for Lee Song for 7 years, had seen the man dismantle rival operations with surgical precision, had watched him negotiate peace treaties that left hardened criminals grateful just to escape with their lives. But he had never, not once, seen the boss cradle a half-drowned teenager in the back seat while missing a critical meeting with the Lee triad. "Boss," Chen ventured carefully, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror where the girl was wrapped in Lee Song's ruined Armani jacket, shivering violently. "The Lee situation can wait." Lee Song's tone brooked no argument, but his hands were gentle as he adjusted the jacket around the girl's shoulders, trying to conserve what little body heat she had left. Kate's eyes fluttered open, unfocused but somehow still sharp. "If this is a kidnapping," she mumbled through chattering teeth, "you guys get points for the heated seats. Very thoughtful. 10 out of 10 would get abducted again." Chen's lips twitched despite himself. The girl was literally dying of hypothermia and still had the presence of mind to crack jokes. Beside him, Marcus, 250 pounds of pure muscle, made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Lee Song's jaw tightened, but when Chen caught his expression in the mirror, there was something new there. Not irritation at the girl's flippancy, but something that looked almost like respect. "Do I at least get to know my kidnapper's name?" Kate added, her words slurring slightly as hypothermia tightened its grip. "Seems like basic hostage etiquette." "Lee Song," he said quietly, "and you're not a hostage." "Sure, that's exactly what a kidnapper would say." Her eyes drifted closed again, and Lee Song's hand moved to her pulse point, checking her heartbeat with the efficiency of someone who'd learned field medicine the hard way. "Skip the hospital," Lee Song ordered. "Too many questions. Take us home." Chen exchanged a glance with Marcus. Home. Not a safe house. Not one of the properties they used for business. The penthouse. The sanctuary Lee Song had built and guarded with the same ferocity he protected his territory. The place where no outsider ever went. The drive through Chinatown's flooded streets felt surreal. Outside, neon signs bled color into the rain-slicked pavement. Inside the Mercedes, Lee Song held a girl he'd known for all of 15 minutes, like she was something precious that might shatter if he loosened his grip. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building Lee Song owned, accessible only by private elevator that required both a key card and fingerprint recognition. As the doors opened, Kate stirred slightly, her eyes widening at the space before her. Even half-conscious, she could appreciate the beauty. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Chinatown's glittering sprawl. Traditional Korean screens divided spaces, decorated with modern furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. The floors were white marble, veined with gold, and Kate watched her own blood, she'd split her lip at some point, drip onto stone that was definitely worth more than her entire life. "Sorry about your floor," she mumbled. Lee Song didn't even glance at it. He carried her past the crew, who stood frozen in various states of shock, and into a guest room that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. He set her down on the bed with a care that made Chen and Marcus exchange another meaningful look. "Get warm blankets for my room," Lee Song ordered, already moving to the attached bathroom. "And someone bring dry clothes, something soft." Chen had never heard his boss use the word soft in any context that didn't involve breaking someone's kneecaps. He went to retrieve the items while Marcus hovered uncertainly in the doorway, watching Lee Song return with an armful of towels. "I've got her," Lee Song said. And it wasn't until Marcus backed away that Chen realized the boss had just dismissed them. Lee Song, who delegated everything from driving to dinner reservations, was personally tending to a girl whose name he didn't even know yet. Kate woke hours later to softness. The bed beneath her felt like sleeping on clouds, and she was wrapped in blankets that probably cost more than the Martinez family's entire monthly rent. She was wearing clothes that weren't hers, an oversized black sweatshirt with Korean characters on the sleeve, sweatpants that had to be rolled up multiple times. Everything smelled of sandalwood and something expensive she couldn't name. Panic hit immediately. 3 years with the Martinez family had taught her that comfort always came with a price, that kindness was just leverage waiting to be deployed. She sat up too fast, her head spinning, looking for exits and threats in equal measure. The door opened. The man from the rain, Lee Song, carrying a tray that released steam and the most incredible smells Kate had experienced in months. Her stomach betrayed her immediately with a growl loud enough to echo in the quiet room. "What do you want from me?" Kate asked, proud that her voice only shook a little. She pulled the expensive blanket tighter, armor made of thread count she couldn't begin to calculate. Lee Song set the tray on the bedside table with movements that were economical and precise. "Right now, I want you to eat. We'll discuss the rest when you don't look like you're about to pass out." Kate stared at the food, Korean soup that steamed invitingly, perfectly cooked rice, small dishes of banchan that looked like they belonged in a restaurant, not a kidnapper's lair. This could be poisoned. "It could be," Lee Song agreed, settling into a chair by the window with the patience of someone who had all the time in the world. "But if I wanted you dead, leaving you in that storm would have been significantly easier." Fair point. Kate's hands were shaking as she reached for the soup. She tried to eat slowly, tried to maintain some dignity, but the first spoonful hit her empty stomach like a revelation. It was the best thing she'd ever tasted, rich and warming and real. Before she could stop herself, she was eating with the desperation of someone who'd been running on fumes for too long. Lee Song watched without comment, and somehow that made it worse. Kate hated that she wanted to cry over soup, hated that kindness from a stranger felt more substantial than 3 years in a home that was supposed to care for her. When the bowl was empty, and she'd eaten every grain of rice, every piece of banchan, Kate finally looked up. Lee Song's expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that looked almost like understanding. "You're safe here. For now, that's all you need to know." Kate wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, wanted to understand why a man in a burgundy suit had pulled her from the storm and brought her to this beautiful, intimidating place. But her body was warm for the first time in hours, her stomach was full for the first time in days, and exhaustion was pulling her under like a tide. "Thank you," she whispered, and hated how small her voice sounded. Lee Song stood, taking the empty tray. "Sleep. Tomorrow we'll talk about what happens next." As the door closed softly behind him, Kate lay back against pillows that felt like heaven and thought about the warmth still emanating from the Martinez apartment, the family that had thrown her away without a second thought. Then she thought about the stranger who ruined his expensive suit to carry her to safety, who fed her without asking for anything in return, who looked at her like she was worth saving. Maybe, just maybe, the universe had finally decided she deserved a break. Or maybe she was about to discover that even beautiful cages were still cages. Either way, for the first time in 3 years, Kate fell asleep without hunger clawing at her stomach, and that felt like a miracle all on its own. Kate woke to sunlight that had no business being that bright, streaming through windows that stretched from floor to ceiling like some architectural flex. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was still dreaming. The Martinez storage room didn't have windows, just a bare bulb and the perpetual smell of old cardboard. Then memory crashed back. The storm, the bank statements, the man in the ruined burgundy suit. She sat up slowly, taking in her surroundings with the wary assessment of someone who learned that beautiful things usually came with ugly prices. The guest room was bigger than the Martinez family's entire living room, decorated in minimalist luxury that screamed money so old it didn't need to shout. Through those impossible windows, Chinatown sprawled below in the morning light, neon signs sleeping off their nighttime glow, streets still wet from yesterday's biblical rain. The bathroom made Kate stop dead in the doorway. It was bigger than her storage room had been, all white marble and gold fixtures, and a shower that looked like it belonged in a spa. Fresh clothes were laid out on the counter, actual women's clothes in what looked suspiciously like her exact size, tags still attached from boutiques Kate had only seen from the outside. A note in precise handwriting read, "Take what you need. LS." Okay, Kate muttered to her reflection, her box braids frizzed from yesterday's storm. So either I've been kidnapped by the world's most considerate criminal, or I died in that rain and this is some weird limbo situation. Either way, I'm taking a shower. 45 minutes later, wearing jeans that actually fit and a sweater soft enough to make her want to cry, Kate ventured out of the bedroom. The penthouse was impossibly quiet, the kind of silence money bought by being high enough that street noise became a distant memory. She moved cautiously through spaces that looked like they belonged in architecture magazines. Traditional Korean screens dividing modern furniture, art on the walls that was probably worth more than her life, floors so pristine she felt guilty for walking on them. She found Lee Song in what appeared to be a kitchen that would make professional chefs weep with envy. He was setting down a tray of breakfast, more Korean food, steam rising invitingly, and Kate's survival instincts screamed at her to refuse. "I'm not hungry," she lied, her stomach immediately betraying her with a growl that echoed off the marble. Lee Song didn't smile, but something in his eyes suggested amusement. He simply set the food on the breakfast bar and took a seat across from her, not eating, not speaking, just waiting. Kate lasted maybe 30 seconds under that patient gaze. This is weird, right? This whole situation is objectively weird. Moderately, Lee Song agreed. "So are you going to tell me what you want? Because in my experience, people don't rescue strangers out of the goodness of their hearts, especially not people who," she gestured vaguely at the penthouse, "live like this. Eat first, then we'll talk." Kate wanted to argue, but the food smelled incredible, and her body was still recovering from yesterday's near-death experience. She ate, trying to maintain some dignity, but ultimately giving up and just shoveling rice into her mouth like someone who'd been starving, which technically she had been. When the plate was empty, finally Kate met Lee Song's eyes. "You saw what happened last night outside the Martinez place." "I saw a family throw a child into a storm," Lee Song said, his voice carefully neutral. "I'm 18, not a child. You're young enough that you shouldn't have been on those streets alone." Something flickered in his expression. Old pain, maybe, or recognition of something familiar. Kate wanted to be angry at the paternalism, but she was too tired. "What happens now? You want me to work for you? Is this like a recruitment thing? Because I should tell you up front, I have zero marketable skills, unless you need someone who's really good at scrubbing floors and staying invisible." Lee Song actually looked offended. "I'm not recruiting you. I'm making sure you don't die of hypothermia because your foster family are criminals." "Wait." Kate sat up straighter. "You know they're my foster family. How do you—" "I know a lot of things. It's how I stay alive in my line of work." "Your line of work being complicated." "That's not an answer. It's the answer you're getting until I know you better." But there was a slight curve to his mouth that might have been a smile. "Though if you're asking whether the rumors about me are true, the answer is mostly yes." Kate processed this. "So you're like, actually the Mafia, like in the movies?" "That's a dramatic term. But accurate?" "Accurate enough." Lee Song leaned back in his chair, and Kate noticed the way he moved. Economical, controlled, like every gesture had been calculated for maximum efficiency. "I control certain interests in Chinatown. I keep order. I protect people who can't protect themselves from those who would exploit them." That sounds suspiciously noble for organized crime. "I never said I was noble. I said I keep order. There's a difference." They sat in silence for a moment, Kate trying to reconcile the man who'd carried her from the storm with the crime lord sitting across from her sipping tea like they were having a casual Sunday morning. "The bank statements," Lee Song said finally. "You found proof they were stealing from you." Kate's throat tightened. She'd been trying not to think about those papers, about what they represented. "My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. They left me about $80,000, everything they'd saved. It was supposed to be for college, for my first apartment, for starting over. But the Martinez family had other plans." Kate nodded, her vision blurring. "They were my fourth foster home. The first three didn't work out. I was too difficult, too angry, too black for white families who wanted to play savior. The Martinezes seemed different. Religious, involved in their church. Carmen kept calling me mija, and Roberto talked about family being forever." She laughed, but it sounded broken. "I actually thought I'd found people who gave a damn." "You thought you'd found a family," Lee Song said quietly. "Yeah, stupid, right? I should have known better by then." "No, human. There's nothing stupid about wanting to belong." Kate wiped her eyes angrily. "Well, joke's on me. They saw a trust fund with my name on it and a stupid kid who was desperate enough to believe their bullshit. 3 years of foster care expenses that paid for Diego's car and Sophia's Instagram aesthetic and Roberto's weekend trips to Atlantic City. 3 years of my parents' sacrifice turned into their shopping spree." The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Lee Song was looking at her with something that might have been understanding, and Kate realized that for the first time since her parents died, someone was actually seeing her, not as a charity case or a paycheck or a problem to be managed, but as a person who'd been wronged. "I'm going to help you," Lee Song said, and it wasn't a question or an offer, it was a statement of fact. Kate laughed bitterly. "Why? Why help me? You don't know me. I'm nobody. Just another foster kid who got screwed over by the system." Lee Song was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes distant. When he spoke, his voice was softer than Kate had heard it. "Because someone should have helped me once, and no one did." Before Kate could respond, the penthouse door opened, and a man in his 30s entered, Chen, she remembered from last night. He looked surprised to see her awake, but addressed Lee Sung with professional efficiency. "Boss, we found something, about the Martinez family." Chen grasped at Kate, then back to Lee Sung. "You're going to want to see this." Lee Sung stood, and Kate saw the shift, the gentle rescuer becoming something harder, more dangerous. "Show me." As Chen pulled out a tablet, Kate felt the world tilt slightly. Whatever they'd found, whatever came next, she understood that she stepped into something far bigger than a simple act of kindness. Lee Sung wasn't just offering help, he was offering protection, justice, maybe even revenge. And for the first time in 3 years, Kate allowed herself to feel something other than resignation. She felt hope, and under that, burning quiet and steady, she felt rage. The Martinez family had stolen from her, thrown her away, left her to die in a storm. They thought she was nothing, nobody, disposable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The files Chen spread across Lee Song's dining table were thick enough to build a small wall. Bank statements, forged signatures, fake invoices, 3 years of systematic theft documented in painful detail. Kate stood frozen, staring at her own signature copied dozens of times with varying degrees of accuracy. Her parents' sacrifice reduced to line items in someone else's budget. "Therapeutic services," she read aloud, voice hollow. $200 a week for 3 years? I never saw a therapist. Not once. "Private tutoring," Chen added, pointing to another section. $150 weekly. School records show you maintained a 3.8 GPA without any external help. "Medical expenses for emergency dental work." Kate's hand went to her mouth, remembering the toothache she'd suffered through for 2 weeks because Carmen said Tylenol was good enough. "I begged them to take me to a dentist." Lee Song stood at the window, his back to her, but Kate could see the tension in his shoulders. "They forged your signature 63 times, billed your trust fund for services you never received while denying you actual care. The trust that should have $80,000 has less than 15. Kate's hands were shaking so badly the papers rattled. They really did this. All of it. For 3 years, they looked me in the eye and... Her voice cracked. My parents died for this money. They saved every penny, worked double shifts, and these people just took it like I didn't matter, like my parents didn't matter. They treated you like an investment, Lee Song said quietly, finally turning to face her. And now they're going to learn what happens when you steal from someone under my protection. Your protection? Kate's laugh was sharp. I didn't ask for that. No, I'm offering it anyway. His dark eyes were steady, certain. The question is whether you'll accept it. Kate wanted to say no, wanted to maintain the independence she'd fought so hard to preserve, but she was 18, broke, and facing people who'd proven they'd destroy her to protect themselves. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. What does protection look like? She asked carefully. It looks like you staying here until we resolve this. It looks like my lawyers ensuring every penny is returned with interest. It looks like the Martinez family learning that some people have consequences. Lee Song paused. And it looks like you deciding what comes next. This is your life, Kate. I'm just making sure you have the resources to live it. The transformation that followed wasn't what Kate expected. Lee Song took her shopping, but he didn't pick out clothes. He gave her his credit card and told her to choose what made her feel like herself. Kate picked streetwear, high tops and ripped jeans and graphic tees, hoodies that were comfortable rather than fashionable. When she emerged from the dressing room expecting judgment, Lee Song just nodded. Better. You looked uncomfortable in the other clothes. The guest room became hers officially, and Kate was given permission to decorate however she wanted. She filled it with secondhand books from Chinatown shops, posters of her favorite artists, photos of her parents she'd kept hidden at the Martinez place. It stopped being a guest room and became Kate's room, and that distinction mattered more than she wanted to admit. The crew integration happened gradually. Chen was the first to crack, his serious facade breaking when Kate caught him watching a K-drama during his lunch break. Are you crying? She asked, delighted. Chen had looked mortified until Kate sat down beside him and admitted she loved the same show. Marcus was a 250-pound wall of muscle who looked like he could bench press a car, but Kate discovered he had a secret weakness. He was terrified of horror movies. She'd walked in on him watching a kid's cartoon to cleanse his palate after accidentally seeing a scary trailer. This stays between us, Marcus had said seriously, and Kate had agreed while mentally filing it out as prime teasing material. Jin-hee was the revelation, a whip-smart logistics specialist in her late 20s who took one look at Kate and apparently decided adoption was in order. She appeared at breakfast, Kate's third morning there, and announced, "We're going shopping for real clothes now, and yes, that's in order." "I have clothes," Kate protested. "You have hoodies. You need a coat that will actually keep you warm, boots for the snow, and at least one outfit that says, 'I'm not a disaster' for important meetings." Jin-hee had linked arms with Kate like they'd been friends for years. "Also, we're getting bubble tea, and you're going to tell me your entire life story." Dinner that night was chaos in the best way. Kate attempted chopsticks under Jin-hee's patient instruction and managed to launch a piece of rice directly into Chen's tea. "And that's why God invented forks," Kate announced, giving up entirely. "You just need practice," Jin-hee encouraged. "I need silverware and my dignity back." Marcus, who'd been quietly demolishing his own plate with perfect chopstick form, looked up. That was low-key embarrassing. Everyone froze. Kate's jaw dropped. Did you use slang?" "Yes, you said low-key means subtle or understated. Your rice launch was low-key embarrassing because it drew attention." "That's not," she started, then dissolved into laughter. "Okay, you know what? Close enough. We'll work on it." Lee Song watched the exchange with something that might have been amusement, and Kate caught Jin-hee studying him with knowing eyes. Later, when they were washing dishes, Kate had insisted on helping, uncomfortable being waited on. Jin-hee spoke quietly. "He's never brought anyone here before, to the penthouse. We do business in offices, safe houses, restaurants, but this place, this is his sanctuary. Maybe he felt sorry for me, Kate said, scrubbing a plate with unnecessary focus. Lee Song doesn't do pity. He does strategy and protection and loyalty. Jin-hee bumped Kate's shoulder gently. You matter to him. I don't know why yet, but you do, and that means you matter to us. Kate's throat tightened. I don't know how to do this, how to let people care. Good thing we're patient then. Jin-hee took the plate from Kate's hands and pulled her into a hug that smelled of jasmine and felt like safety. Welcome to the family, Kate. Try not to launch any more rice at Chen. He's still traumatized. Meanwhile, Lee Song's campaign against the Martinez family had begun with surgical precision. Roberto's bodega, which had been skating by on ignored health violations for years, suddenly found itself under intense scrutiny. Every expired item, every pest issue, every improper storage technique was documented and reported. The bodega was shut down pending corrections that would cost thousands Roberto didn't have. Carmen's church friends received anonymous emails, screenshots of her Instagram posts showing designer bags and spa days, contrasted with the hardship withdrawals from Kate's trust fund. The whispers started immediately, and Carmen's carefully constructed image of sacrificial charity work crumbled. Diego's job at a local gym ended when his manager finally reviewed attendance records showing months of tardiness and unexplained absences. All legitimate grounds for firing. Someone just made sure they were actually enforced. Sophia's influencer aspirations died when a viral thread exposed her designer hauls as purchased through foster care fraud. The comments were brutal, her follower count plummeting, brands dropping sponsorships before they were even offered. Kate watched it happen through updates from Chen, feeling something complicated twist in her chest. Is this justice or revenge? Kate asked Lee Song, watching him review the latest reports. He looked up, his expression unreadable. Yes. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Lee Song set down his tablet. They stole from you. They abused you. They threw you into a storm to die. Should I have let that go unanswered? No, but... Kate struggled to articulate the discomfort. I wanted them to face consequences. I wanted them to hurt like they hurt me. And now they are, and I feel, I don't know, guilty, vindicated, both? That's called being human, Lee Song said quietly. Justice and revenge aren't always distinct actions. Sometimes they're the same action with different motivations. The question is whether you can live with the consequences. Kate thought about the storage room, the hunger, the years of being invisible. Yeah, she said finally, I can live with it. Good, because we're just getting started. Roberto's bodega had been a Chinatown fixture for 15 years, the kind of place where neighbors bought lottery tickets and complained about the weather and trusted that the food was fresh enough. The health inspector who arrived on a Tuesday morning found violations that had apparently existed for months. Expired products, improper refrigeration temperatures, evidence of rodent activity, and financial records that didn't match reported inventory. By Wednesday afternoon, the bodega was shut down, with a notice plastered across the door that might as well have been a death certificate for Roberto's identity as a successful small business owner. Kate watched the news coverage on Chen's tablet, Roberto standing outside his closed store looking smaller than she remembered, older somehow, defeated. She felt satisfaction curl warm in her chest, followed immediately by something colder, the realization that she was capable of enjoying another person's suffering. All the violations were real, Chen said, as if reading her discomfort. We didn't plant evidence, we just made sure the right people finally looked. That's still revenge, Kate said quietly. Yes, but it's also justice. Both things can be true. Carmen's fall was more personal, more surgical. The church community where she'd volunteered for 3 years, serving meals, organizing charity drives, performing benevolence with the precision of someone auditioning for sainthood, received a series of anonymous emails. Screenshots of Carmen's social media showed designer bags and spa days. Bank records showed hardship withdrawals from Kate's trust fund on the same days Carmen posted about her latest purchases. Photos of the storage room where Kate had slept contrasted with Sophia's Instagram-perfect bedroom. The churchwomen who'd admired Carmen's sacrifice turned on her with the swift brutality of people who'd been made to feel foolish. She was quietly asked not to return, her charity work erased as if she'd never existed. Kate heard through Jin-hee that Carmen had stopped leaving her apartment, that the woman who'd valued social standing above humanity had lost the only thing she'd ever really cared about. Diego's workplace discovered what Kate could have told them months ago. He'd been clocking in for online training courses while having his foster sister complete the work. The gym fired him for fraud and blacklisted him in the industry. At 22, with no degree and a reputation for dishonesty, Diego's future looked as uncertain as Kate's had felt every day in that storage room. Sophia's influencer dreams died in a viral thread that connected her designer hauls to foster care fraud. The comments were vicious. Imagine funding your aesthetic with a dead couple's life insurance. This is literally theft from an orphan. Your outfit costs more than human decency. Her follower count dropped from 15,000 to 300 in a week. Brands that had been considering sponsorships vanished. Sophia deleted all her social media, but the internet never forgot. Kate found herself checking the updates obsessively, watching the Martinez family's world collapse with the same precision they'd used to dismantle her sense of worth. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. Lee Song found her on the penthouse balcony at midnight, staring at Chinatown's neon glow like it held answers. He didn't say anything, just stood beside her with 2 cups of tea, waiting with that infinite patience she was starting to recognize as care. "They destroyed themselves," he said finally. "I just made sure everyone could see it." "That's semantics," Kate replied, accepting the tea. "You orchestrated this, every piece." "Perhaps, but tell me honestly, do you feel sorry for them?" Kate thought about the storage room, the hunger that had become background noise, the years of being told she was ungrateful for wanting basic human dignity. "No, I don't feel sorry for them, but I don't know if that makes me a good person." "Good people can seek justice," Lee Song said quietly. "You're allowed to want them to face consequences for what they did to you." "What if I want more than consequences?" Kate's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "What if part of me wants them to hurt like they hurt me? What if I'm glad Roberto lost his business and Carmen lost her friends, and Diego and Sofia are finally facing reality? Then you're human. Acting on that impulse would be the problem, but feeling it? That's just honest." Lee Song was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight Kate hadn't heard before. "I grew up in foster care in Seoul, passed between homes that saw me as government money, nothing more. I learned early that the world was cruel, and you survived by being crueler. I fought, I stole, I did what I had to do to eat." He stared out at the city he controlled. "Until one day, I realized I was tired of just surviving. I wanted to build something, a world where I made the rules, where people like me, people who'd been thrown away, could find protection." Is that what this is? Protection? "I'm not a good man, Kate. I've done things that would horrify you, but I try to be a fair one, and I protect what's mine." "You're not mine," Kate said automatically, but there was no heat in it. "No, but you're under my protection, and in my world, that's stronger than belonging. Belonging can be taken away. Protection is a choice I make every day." Kate felt something shift in her chest, some locked door finally opening. For weeks, she'd been waiting for Lee Song to reveal his real agenda, to demand payment for his kindness. But maybe, impossibly, he was just someone who saw her value and decided it was worth protecting. The next morning, Jin-hee appeared at breakfast with a laptop and a determined expression. "Educational time," she announced, settling beside Kate. "We're talking about foster care fraud because you need to understand you're not alone in this." What followed was equal parts infuriating and validating. Jin-hee walked Kate through statistics, how common financial exploitation was in foster care, how the system's lack of oversight made trust funds vulnerable, how many children aged out without ever knowing they'd had money that disappeared. She explained Kate's legal options, the resources available to fraud survivors, the advocacy groups fighting to change the system. "There are thousands of kids like you," Jin-hee said gently, "and most of them never get justice because they don't know their rights or don't have the resources to fight back. You're lucky, you have us now, but we need to make sure you understand what happened wasn't your fault, and it wasn't unique. The system failed you long before the Martinez family did." Kate absorbed the information, feeling anger transform into something more focused. "So what do I do with this? Just knowing doesn't fix anything." "No, but knowledge is power, and when you're ready, maybe you use that power to help others." Jin-hee squeezed her hand. "For now, focus on healing. The rest will come." Healing looked like unexpected moments of normalcy. Marcus teaching Kate self-defense in the penthouse gym, his massive hands gentle as he corrected her form. "Again," he'd say patiently when she fumbled a move, "and this time actually commit to the punch. I can take it." Kate laughed and committed, and Marcus had grinned with something like pride when she finally got it right. It looked like cooking with Chen, who turned out to be surprisingly good in the kitchen. He taught Kate to make simple Korean dishes while sharing stories about growing up in his grandmother's restaurant. "She'd hit me with a wooden spoon if I chopped vegetables wrong," he said, demonstrating proper technique, "but she also taught me that food is love made visible." It looked like late-night conversations with Jin-hee, painting our nails and talking about everything and nothing. "You're healing," Jin-hee told her, one night catching Kate laughing at one of Marcus's deadpan attempts at using slang. "You can see it. You're not just surviving anymore. You're living." Kate realized Jin-hee was right. She was laughing more, sleeping without nightmares, starting to believe that maybe she deserved good things. The Martinez family was collapsing under the weight of their own choices, and Kate was building something new from the ashes of who she'd been forced to be. She was healing, and for the first time in years, she was home. 3 weeks of safety felt like borrowed time, and Kate had learned the hard way that borrowed things always got taken back. She started small, skipping dinner because she wasn't hungry, staying in her room with excuses about homework, declining movie nights with increasingly transparent lies. Her laptop history filled with apartment listings she couldn't afford, job postings for positions she wasn't qualified for, bus routes to cities where nobody knew her name. Jin-hee found her on a Thursday afternoon, staring at a Greyhound schedule like it held salvation. "Planning a trip?" "Something like that." Kate closed the laptop too quickly. "Kate, what's going on?" "Nothing. I just need to start planning my real life. This isn't sustainable." "Why not?" The question broke something open. "Because it's not real." Kate's voice cracked, 3 weeks of mounting panic spilling out. "None of this is real. He saved me because he felt guilty or bored or has some hero complex. But eventually he's going to wake up and realize I'm just some broke foster kid who brings nothing to the table. And then I'll be back on the street, except now I'll know what I'm missing. So I'd rather leave first." Jin-hee's expression softened with understanding. "You should tell him that." "Tell him I'm leaving? I don't need permission." "Tell him why you're leaving. Tell him you're scared." Kate packed at dawn, new clothes that still felt stolen, phone charger, the photo of her parents. She made it to the elevator, finger hovering over the button, when Lee Song's voice cut through the quiet. Running from danger or running from safety? She turned, every defense snapping into place. "I don't run from danger. I've lived in danger. I'm running from this." "From me?" "From disappointing you, from being too much, from the moment you realize I'm not worth this." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Everyone throws me away eventually." Lee Song crossed the distance slowly, and when he spoke, his voice carried old scars. "I was 12 in Seoul, shuffled between homes that saw me as a government check. They called me difficult, aggressive, unwanted. One day, I fought back against a foster father's belt, and they threw me out. No warning, just the street and nothing else." Kate's grip on her bag loosened. "I built this entire empire because I was tired of being disposable. When I saw you in that rain, I saw myself. But more than that, I saw someone who refused to stop fighting even when the world said she should. You're not too much, Kate. You're exactly what you need to be. And you're not disappointing me by being afraid. You're disappointing me by assuming I'd throw you away. I'm not your charity case. You're my friend, possibly my only real one. Kate's walls cracked, tears she'd held for weeks finally breaking free. Lee Song stood there awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with emotion but not leaving. He patted her shoulder once, twice, then gave up and just stayed close while she cried. The next morning, Kate appeared at breakfast. Nobody mentioned the packed bag, now unpacked. Nobody asked questions. They just made space for her at the table, and for the first time, Kate believed she might actually deserve to be there. The community center smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Kate was showing a 15-year-old how to request her trust fund statements when the van pulled up outside, too clean and too quiet for Chinatown's usual traffic. Jin-hee noticed first, her body tensing in that way Kate had learned meant danger. The cloth came over Kate's mouth before she could scream. Chemical sweet, world tilting. Zip ties bit into her wrists. Jin-hee's shout cut off abruptly. Then darkness, and the engine's purr, and the sick understanding that she'd become a weapon aimed at Lee Song's heart. She woke to concrete and cold. David Lee stood over her, all expensive suit and cheap arrogance, the kind of man who mistook cruelty for power. "You're Lee Song's new pet project. We're going to use you to send a message." Kate's heart hammered, but her voice came out steady. "You grabbed the wrong girl." "I don't think so. He'll come for you." "Oh, he will, but I won't be here." David laughed, but Kate was already working. The zip ties were standard issue. She'd watched Chen demonstrate how to break them using body weights in the right angle. The chair had a rough bolt she could use. 4 guards, all positioned like they expected her to stay helpless. They hadn't been paying attention during Marcus's training sessions, hadn't noticed her asking Chen about tactical thinking, didn't know she'd mapped half of Chinatown during her escape planning phase. When David left to make his ransom call, Kate moved. The zip tie snapped after 30 seconds of pressure against the bolt. One guard turned at the sound. Kate swung the chair leg she'd loosened and connected with his knee. He went down hard. She grabbed the fire extinguisher, blasted it at the others, and ran through the chaos toward the rafters she'd spotted earlier. Lee Song arrived like divine retribution, black SUVs, his crew moving with lethal efficiency. He looked up and found her perched above the warehouse floor, and Kate caught the flash of relief before pride took over. "Need a hand?" he called. "I had it under control." "I can see that." Kate fed him intel, guard positions, secondary exits, David's location. The fight ended quickly, the Lee triad learning what happened when they miscalculated Lee Song's resources. As they left through smoke and scattered enemies, Lee Song stopped her. "You could have waited for me." "I could have, but then I would have been the victim again. I'm tired of being saved." "So you'll settle for being reckless?" "I'll settle for being useful." Something shifted in his expression. "You've always been useful. Today, you were invaluable." Back at the penthouse, Marcus adjusted her stance while teaching proper punches. "Your form is terrible, but your instincts are good." Chen analyzed her escape like a chess game. Chaotic, but effective. Jin-hee just held her, wordless and fierce. Lee Song found Kate on the balcony hours later, adrenaline finally wearing off. "You scared me today." "Good. Now you know how I feel every time you leave for business." "That's different." "How?" He didn't have an answer. Kate leaned against him, exhausted and alive. "I'm not trying to be brave. I'm just tired of being afraid." "You're both." His voice was quiet. "And for the record, I'm not letting you out of my sight for a while." "Overprotective much?" "Thoroughly." But he was smiling, and Kate understood. This was partnership. 2 people equally terrified of losing each other, equally determined to stay. The convoy rolled up to the Martinez apartment like Judgment Day. Lee Song's Mercedes, Chen's SUV, Marcus's unmistakable silhouette visible through tinted windows. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. Everyone in Chinatown knew who Lee Song was, and they knew he didn't make social calls. Roberto opened the door and went white. The apartment behind him looked smaller, shabbier. No designer bags cluttering the entryway, no new electronics glowing. Carmen appeared, her hair less perfect, eyes red-rimmed. They'd felt Lee Song's campaign, and it showed. Kate stepped forward in her sleek black coat, box braids styled with gold cuffs Jinhee had gifted her. She looked like she belonged to Lee Song's world now, because she did. Amara, Carmen started. Kate, she corrected sharply. You never bothered to use my actual name. Roberto's hands trembled. Kate, please, you have to understand. We were desperate. The bodega was struggling. Diego needed... You stole from me. For 3 years, you took everything my parents left me and spent it on yourselves while I slept on a futon in your storage room and scrubbed your floors. We gave you a home. Kate's laugh was cold. You gave me a prison. A home is where people care if you eat, where they don't throw you into a storm for finding out the truth. Diego and Sofia emerged, looking diminished, no designer armor, no Instagram filters to hide behind. Sofia couldn't meet Kate's eyes. Diego stared at his feet like a scolded child. We didn't mean, Sofia whispered. Yes, you did. You meant every ignored meal, every cruel comment, every time you treated me like your personal servant. You knew exactly what you were doing. Carmen dissolved into tears. What do you want from us? We've lost everything. The bodega is closed. The church has turned on us. I want you to understand. Kate's voice was quiet, and that made it more powerful. I want you to understand that I was a person. I had parents who loved me. I had a future, and you saw me as a paycheck. That's what I want you to live with. The police are investigating, Roberto tried desperately. We could go to jail. Please, if you tell them it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was theft, and I'm cooperating fully with the investigation. Lee Song spoke for the first time, his voice carrying quiet menace. You're fortunate Kate is more merciful than I am. If it were up to me, this conversation would look very different. But she wanted to see you, to remind herself of who you really are. Consider that gift received. Kate turned to leave, then paused. You threw me into a storm because I knew too much, but storms end, and I survived. I'm thriving. Can you say the same? In the car, Kate stared out the window, silent. Lee Song waited. I thought I'd feel better, she admitted finally, seeing them like that. And you don't? I feel empty, like I wasted energy hating people who weren't worth it. That's called healing, Jinhee said gently. You're letting them go. They'll face legal consequences, Lee Song added, but you don't have to carry the weight of their punishment. You're free of them. Kate nodded slowly. They're not monsters. They're just really shitty humans. The best revenge, Chen observed, is being genuinely happy when they're not. That's not revenge. That's just living well. Exactly. Kate watched Chinatown's neon blur past and thought about her parents, imagined them proud. Thank you, she told Lee Song, for stopping that night. Kate, you were always more than what they made you. I just made sure you had the space to prove it. 3 months after the confrontation, Kate's life had transformed into something she barely recognized. Her trust fund sat restored at $80,000 plus interest and damages. Court-ordered restitution that felt like vindication in numerical form. The Martinez family was serving time. Diego and Sofia on probation with mandated community service. Carmen and Roberto facing federal charges that would keep them occupied for years. But Kate rarely thought about them anymore. She was too busy building a future that actually belonged to her. Community college had started in the fall, business management, because watching Lee Song's legitimate operations turned out to be fascinating in ways she hadn't expected. She still lived in the penthouse, but now she paid rent. Lee Song had tried to refuse, but Kate had planted her feet. "I'm not a charity case. I'm a tenant. Get over it." He'd accepted her check with something that looked suspiciously like pride. Her official title was Community Liaison, complete with business cards Jin-hee had designed with unnecessary flair. Kate worked with foster teens in Chinatown, helping them navigate systems that had failed her, advocating for kids who needed someone to see them. She used her scars to protect others, and it gave her purpose that survival alone never could. The penthouse had evolved too. Kate's room overflowed with secondhand novels, her desk covered with textbooks and notes. Photos of her parents sat beside a newer picture, the crew at dim sum, Marcus pulling a ridiculous face, Chen almost smiling, Jin-hee hugging Kate tight, Lee Song watching them all with contentment he'd probably deny if asked. She found him on the balcony one evening, Chinatown spreading below like a kingdom of neon and possibility. Kate joined him with 2 cups of tea. She'd gotten better at brewing it, though he still winced occasionally. "Thinking about business?" she asked. "Thinking about how different things are now." "Good different or bad different?" "Good. Surprisingly good." He glanced at her. "You changed things here, Kate. The crew was lighter, more human, because of you. I think you were all human before I showed up. You just needed permission to show it." He was quiet for a moment, and Kate recognized the gathering of courage in that silence. "I wanted to ask you something." Her heart did something complicated. "Okay." "The community center project. We've been discussing expanding it. More resources for foster kids, legal aid, educational programs. I want you to run it." "Run it? Lee, I'm 18 and barely have an associate's degree started." "You have something better. You understand the need, and I have me to fund it and my network to support it." Kate processed this, possibilities blooming. "This is real, not just an idea?" "I've already purchased the building. Jin-hee is handling permits. Chen is working on security. I'm just waiting for you to say yes." "Why me?" "Because you see people the way I wish someone had seen me. Because you survived something that should have broken you, and you're using that survival to help others. Because you're the only person I trust with something this important." Tears threatened, and Kate didn't bother hiding them. "What if I screw it up?" "Then we fix it together. That's how partnership works." She laughed through the tears. "You're really bad at feelings, you know that." "I'm aware. I'm trying." "You're doing okay." She leaned against him, comfortable in the silence. "I'll do it, but I have conditions." "Name them." "The kids get final say in the programs. No decisions about them without them. And I want to hire other foster care survivors to staff it. People who get it." "Done." "And I want it named after my parents, the Chen and Yolanda Memorial Center." Lee Song understood immediately, taking back the Martinez name and transforming it into something that honored the people who'd actually loved her. That's perfect. 6 months later, the center opened to a crowd that spilled onto the sidewalk. Kate stood at the podium looking out at foster kids and social workers and community members, and she didn't hide her story. She talked about the Martinez family, about the storm, about learning that being saved and saving yourself weren't mutually exclusive. Your value isn't determined by the people who throw you away. It's determined by who you choose to become, and you get to choose every single day. The applause washed over her. Lee Song stood in the back, really smiling. Marcus was definitely crying. Jin-hee captured everything on camera. Chen had given up on looking professional. Later, Lee Song found Kate in the library they'd built. Hundreds of books, because every kid deserved access to stories that might save them. "You did well," he said. "We did well. This is all of us. Still, your parents would be proud." "I hope so. I really hope so." They stood surrounded by potential. Outside, Chinatown glowed. A storm nearly ended Kate's story, but instead it had been the beginning. So, Lee Song said, "What's next?" Kate grinned. "World domination? Kidding. Maybe just keeping this going, building more, helping more kids. Ambitious. I learned from the best. I'm not sure I'm the best role model. You're mine. That's what matters." They left together as evening fell, neon reflecting in puddles from earlier rain. But this time, the rain was just weather, not a weapon. And Kate walked through it laughing, completely unafraid. The girl who'd collapsed in a storm had become the woman who danced in the rain. And the man who saved her had learned that sometimes the best protection is helping someone grow strong enough to protect themselves.